I was angry for a long time when I was younger. The quote I always use when I talk to people is hate is a poison that kills the vessel that contains it. So no,
Oh, that's good.
I had to learn that. I had to learn how to go. I have to let that go. Some people call it forgiveness. I don't necessarily subscribe to that, but I can go, I'm not going to carry that anymore.
Welcome back to another episode of Briggs & Co., where we leave average for Joe. Today, I released the third podcast episode with Dad. If for nothing else, I am blessed to sit down and have rich, deep, meaningful conversations with people in my life and people I pull inspiration from, whether I've met them physically in person or just through my network of people online. Regardless of it, I am so freaking grateful that I get to sit down and pull and pick at these people's brains. It's so wonderfully insightful for me, and I hope it is to you as well. In my selfish pursuit of personal growth and constant curiosity, I hope Leave Average for Joe leaves you feeling motivated, curious, and reflective. This conversation that I got to have with Dad talks about so much of, I guess, why we do the things that we do or work so hard on, the importance of finding something that you can dedicate yourself towards, spend time in the back end, like not always in the spotlight, not always in the spotlight of people knowing that you're doing it, constantly getting reassured by third parties or social media or friends and family. It's the work that we do behind the scenes that doesn't get the recognition that I think holds the most value. And Dad and I have a rich conversation about that. We parallel it with gardening and his love for gardening, although it doesn't always harvest the most fruitful return. It teaches him lots of lessons. And we also chat about why I think sewing is a dying art form, a dying trade, and how important it is to keep that going. We get into some topics of conversation regarding AI, topics of conversation regarding health and longevity, creativity as we age. There's just so much good combo in this episode, and I really do hope you enjoy it. If you do, like, comment, share the episode with friends, with family. It really does help grow the show. As you know, it helps bring more people onto the show that I get the pleasure to communicate with and then spread their message with the world as well. So all in all, enjoy the show. Let me know how you like it. If you want Dad to come on for round 4, you got to let me know in the comments or else I won't know. All right, everyone. Cheers. Enjoy. Alrighty, let's get after it. Dad,
Did
welcome to the
you,
show. Round 3.
hey, welcome to your show.
Is it
Did your
mine
wife?
though if technically everything that is mine originally came from you?
I would say it is yours, and I just get to take credit for the good stuff,
Is it
which is
weird when
which
you're
is
a
like
dad?
98% of what you do.
Is it weird when you're a dad to see adults now like not people that you parent anymore in the sense of like rules and let me teach you how to live? Is it weird? I feel like that would be weird, like seeing them out in the world being humans now.
Yeah, I like to be honest with you, I'm thinking about it and I want to go yes, but then I go, it takes place over a long period of time. And every child, you know, gets to certain places sooner or later than others and in different areas of life. And so you're all growing together because I'm not the same person I was when you were an infant or when you were a teenager. I'm different too. So we've all kind of grown together. It's like watching your dad get fat. Like you don't realize it until
You
one
mean
day
vice
some
versa? Like it, not vice
or
versa,
both,
but
like
river.
whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
eventually somebody goes, "Oh my God, your hair's gray." It's like, yeah,
When did that happen?
I guess it is, you know, because you get one gray hair and you're like, okay, move on. I got stuff to do.
I always remember there was one night when we were having a fire, and this was maybe when I was like, I don't know, 10, 11 years old. And we were looking up at the stars. And I was too young to really like to be philosophical. I was too young, but I remember looking at the stars and I started to cry because I was like, I don't it was the first time I thought about death. Like I was like, I don't want to die. Like it's not that I was scared to die, the pain of it or anything, but it was like I'm having too good of a time. It was probably a night where I was like, this is fun. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then I remember I was like, but this could end. This is no, I don't want that to happen. And then I remember it was either you or mom. I was like, but I don't want to. I don't want to die. Like I don't. And it's like, how do you as a parent go like, it's gonna be okay?
You just go, you're not. You're never going to die. Not in
Oh,
my
you don't want
lifetime.
to? Then we just won't. Then
Exactly.
we just won't.
Not in my lifetime.
Oh no, I remember that vividly because it was the first time that I was like, whoa, this is fragile. This could end. This is going to end. Um, but you
And
don't really like you.
that's pretty significant if you were that young for you to come to that realization and knowing that there is a finite amount of time you have on this beautiful planet, because it gives you some perspective. And you might not have held that, so close over the course of your life to this point, but for your child to realize that, I think as a parent, you'd be going, good. That's an important perspective to have.
You're doing good things at that point if you're a parent, I think,
Yeah,
or
like
not.
or you come to realize your child's probably on mushrooms. It's like,
Did they get my stash? Did they find it? Um. Okay, so I made a list of things that I wanted to talk about because this is episode 3 now, and it's funny because I always look at the not always, I shouldn't say always. I'll probably once a month look at episode rankings.
mhm,
And obviously exposure to the public gives you a bonus. Like if your episode was released a year ago, then you're going to hold higher ranks just because of exposure to like time released or whatever, released in.
yep.
Um but your episode consistently number 3.
Oh, really?
I think it's your very first one. Which for people that haven't listened to that one, they should listen to that one because that one talks about we went into your background, early childhood. We talked about I think vice principal and you having a little fight. We talked about your time volunteering for the firefighting in Parkland County, I believe.
No, emergency response is one of them.
Emergency response. Right. We talked about you up in Swan Hills, mom being out on the acreage, that stuff. So I think
Yep.
it's important that people listen to that one first. And we also talked about in the second one when I was in Miami, which is probably a highlight of that episode for me, and I think a lot of people also mentioned that they liked this topic we talked about was creativity. And you mentioned a growth curve as you age and your creativity goes down the older you get. And so you
Yep.
were trying to sharpen that tool. And so one of the things that I wanted to ask you about today on the third recording, who the heck thought we'd come this far?
Exactly.
Um, was what have you been keeping up with your creativity? Because I know that was the last thing we talked about was you were wanting to make sure that you were sharpening that tool.
Well, did we, was that pre when I was doing the prompt engineering for AI, or had I done that and we talked about it or not? We
You
don't
might
know,
have been
do
in the
we?
midst of it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's something that I did. It was an online course with
So that
Vanderbilt.
sounds like super smart. If you could just like take that down 2 notches just for somebody like myself, um, that would be that would be really helpful if you could just explain what that is in layman's terms.
Well, it's honestly, it's almost irrelevant now because AI has come so far along. But it was essentially, how do you get, a large language model like ChatGPT or something to be able to narrow down and focus in on a problem you're trying to solve
Mhm.
versus just talking to it in general terms and asking it like a Google search. So you prompt it, you learn how to prompt it to set it up to be a very specific set of knowledge and a very specific set of skills. Like you learn, you figure it, like if you whatever problem, if you're trying to solve a mechanical engineering problem, how can you prompt it to get it to a point where it thinks it's answering specifically mechanical engineering questions instead of giving you generic responses. Or how to, if you're trying to write a play, you prompt it in a way to get it to where it's now almost what they're called now are AI agents. So you can get it to, and you can create your own AI agents now, where it is a playwriter or a playwright, I guess. And so that's an AI agent that is designed specifically to write plays. Uh,
Would you
that's
have
those
to
are a couple
prompt
of
it?
examples.
Would you have to prompt it in, you would say, like, in X's personality, or if X was going to write a play, write it in their way? Like, would you have to prompt it like that?
Well, that's something you can do, but it's more like I didn't look at how do I, prompt it to be, write a play along the lines of Shakespeare, but
Oh,
just get it so that, like, if you think of it as a person, then you're designing a person to be a mechanical engineer or to be a playwright. So they know structure and cadence and process and how that works. And then you can start to prompt it with the play you want to write, and it can start to feed back. And so that, excuse me, that now has moved to where there's an application called, or an AI called Replit, where you, instead of having a generalized chat GPT or one of the others, where you can get it to create an agent like I was just describing. So
oh,
it will write an application for a phone or a website. It can be your personal assistant, and you just give it access to your calendar. You give it access to your Airbnb passwords and all of those types of things. And so when a request comes in to your email saying, can you speak, Briggs, can you speak in Toronto on the 25th of July? It'll take that request, it'll look at your calendar, it'll scroll through Airbnb, it'll find the closest, top three Airbnbs close to where you're speaking. It'll look at the airline flights, and
what
it'll
are we good for anymore? What?
and it and it'll come back to you with, here's what I found. Here's three Airbnbs. This is the one I think you should choose. Here's a flight that's gonna, you're leaving 2 days before because you want to prepare. I know that I know how you work. You like to get in a day before so that you can. And here's some restaurants. I can make a reservation. Here's two that are your preferences, types of food. Um, and here's the top three, or here's the top one in each, your travel, your airline, your Airbnb, and your food and dining preferences. And here's the top three I think you would prefer, and you can just go book it, and it'll go in and it'll book your itinerary, it'll book your Airbnb, your flights, and make a reservation for you. And that's, and you don't have to have any coding skills. You do this all, like, to create the application that does that. You don't have to have any coding skills. It's just
Because the code is already there and you just have to pretty much download the program onto your software, or
no, it'll write the application for you. So it's your application specific. It's for you.
what's it called? Rep
Replit,
Replit?
Replit. Yeah,
Replit.
yeah.
Did you are you the founder? Can you imagine?
I
It's
wish.
drop This is my release. What do you think about that? I know you're probably game for it, but what do you actually think about it in terms of its repercussions, maybe? I think there's pros and cons to stuff like this, so I'm just curious to know what your take is on it.
Well, I think it's a game changer for um because that's just an example of creating an AI agent. Um, like you could do one that will, produce 3D CAD designs for your 3D printer without ever having to know A, CAD, or B, how to program an application. So it'll create an agent where you can just speak to it and say, I need, these gears with these specific ratios that are going to fit inside this type of a machine to produce this sort of outcome. And it'll write the CAD drawings that you can just feed to a 3D printer and print it out without ever having done any mechanical engineering or even know how to do CAD designing.
So would you say that programming is something that people should still, and coding should still be something that people get into, or do you
Hard
think that
no.
that's
It's
yeah,
obsolete.
frick.
No, it's dead. I mean, IBM just announced yesterday or this morning they've laid off 8,000 people in human resources. Like
Yeah.
they don't, they're taking vacation requests and, you know, sick leaves and all of these types of things coming into HR departments. They have agents that just handle all that done. They, there was another organization that had, well, what was, one example was there was a founder starting a company and probably had what would have been, it was a merger and acquisition, and there would have been probably 150 to $200,000 in legal fees because of writing the contracts and back and forth,
Yeah.
and they just used AI, did it in an hour, and eliminated all of the legal fees and the back and forth.
And potential for human error too, which I also think is something that's massive.
Well, I think there's still because there is still some hallucinations in AI. So I think you still need somebody that will review and look for errors, because that is possible. Like they still do hallucinate, but they're much better than they were. And on
Jeez.
the that's on the that's sort of some of the stuff that I'm looking at right now. I'm really looking at that big rock out in the front yard there, and I'm
For those that might, well, no one knows about this. Um, what's the stone? Just
limestone.
limestone, yeah.
Yeah,
And it was delivered to us,
yeah.
and Dad was carving out a seal. I believe it was a seal.
Well, yeah. There was a seal and a salmon, and
Seal and a salmon.
the seal was about to take down the salmon. Yeah.
And you were, I mean, I know you'll argue, but it was coming along. It was.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
yeah.
then along came a hammer, and that thing was
Well, because
destroyed.
it was it it was the stone had so many fractures in it because it was probably 3 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot, overall cubic
Like
wise.
how many tons?
Oh, I don't know. I don't
Because I
know.
just want to give somebody like an idea of how big this thing was.
Well, you'd need a skid steer to move it. Like you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's 3 feet
Popped right
tall by
into the
3 feet
driveway.
wide. Yeah, 3 feet tall by 3 feet wide by 3 feet long. Yeah, um, and it wasn't actually the stone I was looking for. I was looking for sandstone. And
Mm.
so when it came, it was already there and it was dropped off. And I had to get the neighbor guy to come over with his skid steer because I tried building a leverage system because we have a telephone
Oh,
pole out in the back. So
okay.
I drilled in some hinges into the garage so that I could try and lever it and stuff. And I couldn't do it. So,
But the pyramids were made?
yeah, apparently that's what some people say. Uh, Yeah, and then so I got to a point where it just started shattering at different places, and I could see that it was just not it wasn't working. And that's the first time I'd done that sort of level of stone sculpture.
Yeah.
So I just broke it apart and drug it out to the middle of the trees there. But it
Therapy.
haunts me.
Cheap.
It haunts me because like it's sitting there and I know there's something inside of it that wants to come out. And so I look at it and it just constantly stares back at me and goes like, you got unfinished business here, dude.
So
Yeah.
then,
So
are you gonna attempt number two of the same visual,
no,
same salmon and
no, I
seal?
don't. When I do anything creative
You
that
just
way,
let your body speak.
it 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 tells me what's inside there. Like I don't start with. Rarely do I start with that uh, that body I did with the washers.
Yeah.
I started that with a visual in my head, but
Which
that's
actually,
because
pause for those that don't. That Dad just mentioned the washers and the bodice, the sculpture, the what would that be? Welding of it, right? You welded
yep,
it together.
yep,
That's on when I had released our merch, I had that in the background. So if anyone wants to see it, it's actually on my Instagram in the background where I released the merch, and it's outstanding. Like, this isn't DIY. Like, Dad's I just I get mad cuz Dad's an artist through and through, and so it's like I think you could so overlook the actual talent because it's not you don't bloat it, boast it. What's that word?
pizza.
You don't scream it from the rooftops that you are, but you've got talent to do so. So, anyways, long story short, if you're interested, go look on that. But yeah, continue.
Yeah, so that was something where you start with like I don't know 1,200 washers, and it's tough to look at a 1,200 washers and go, so there's something in there. Uh, but you can go, here's something I want to do with, see if I can take these little things and make something bigger. But like if it's a piece of wood or it's a block of clay, or if it's a boulder, to me, I just start working it and something starts to go, oh, that is supposed to be part of this. And then you sort of draw that out and then it sort of just comes through, which is which is different than I think like if you're gonna to me, if you're painting, you start with a palette of colors, or if you're welding the sculpture, you're starting with a bunch of pieces. The other one would have been Francesca. I had a vision there because I had a bunch of pieces of scrap metal, and I went, yeah, I want to build something
This was a
along.
horse statue, or
Right, yeah,
yeah.
the head and mane of a horse, yeah. And so there's those two different processes. So if it's a bulk piece of material, I let it tell me what's inside of it. If it's a bunch of parts of different types of material, then I kind of approach it with, I'd like to try and make something like
I've got
this.
an idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. Okay, so then we've got a rock that we're gonna try and turn into something. So
Yep.
that's our creative outlet right now. But also AI, which I don't know. Would you argue that that's creative? Your AI
No, no, I think that's just along the curiosity line.
curiosity line, yeah.
Yeah.
Something else that you're into. Obviously, it's springtime, summertime coming, or is here really with this weather.
Mhm.
Um,
But
gardening.
that would be well, yeah, yeah, gardening. But you made me think about, excuse me, the poplar trees I've been shaping for the last couple of years, 2 or 3 years. So this is
The
and I
neighborhood
started,
weirdo. That
yeah,
that that title.
yeah. So I'm starting to see some of the results that I started a few years ago, two,
I
three
just
years
noticed that
ago.
the other day, actually, when I was backing into the driveway. I mean, I always notice it because I'm always like, is it going to be this year that we see the genius
It's
come
not.
out?
It's not about. I'm curious to see what my tweaks to these trees as they're growing, like how does it end up looking as it gets more mature,
Yeah.
right? Like it, so you're you're influencing the way the tree grows, the way as opposed to the way it just would grow in a wild fashion. So and they're a very common, almost a weed-like tree. I mean, they just grow everywhere and so fast, and they all look exactly the same. So to twist and bend and get them to do and grow in alternate ways without damaging them is yeah, something I really enjoy, and it's a slow play. It's a long play because you can't force them; they just break, right? You have to do it in a way that it's comfortable for them to grow
But
into, and
you're doing it you did it when they were young, young, young trees,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, saplings, yeah, and I continue to do it because they have new growth, so I have to continue to manage the new growth as well, and then
So
yeah,
then
go ahead.
gardening is looking like what this season? Have you planted new ones? Vegetables, anything that you haven't tried before that you're trying out, or is it pretty
No, no,
standard?
there's not too much in the vegetable space that I mean, you're in I think I don't know what zone we're in, zone 5 or something like that. There's a relatively finite amount of things you can grow, without getting into greenhouse sort of things,
Yeah.
and that then you can get a little more exotic. No, it's pretty standard, but I absolutely love it. To me, that's a creative expression all the time as well.
I agree. I
It's
agree.
just it's just edible art.
Yeah. And, I think it's like those who seed um, the crop and then you see it harvest, and I think that that in itself is something so humbling and something that if you are the one that is farming it or growing it or whatever you wanna call it, that deep appreciation for what is actually on your plate too at the end of it.
Absolutely.
Like,
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of times at the end, you're kinda going,
I'm
"You
still
know
starving.
well, you kinda go you go, "I coulda gone to the grocery store."
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, that's what I
Like,
mean.
there's very
"Oh, this
few
was
things that
fun. I'm
yeah,
starving."
and you're yeah, and you think about you till the soil, plant the seeds, water, and then the weeding for 90 to 100 days minimum, right? And then you end up with something that you're proud of, and you get to share it with your friends and family because we always have more than we can eat here. We always give
Yeah.
lots away,
The
and that
squash, butternut the spaghetti squash is
yeah,
our probably your most successful, I'd say.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, yeah. I mean, everything gets eaten by someone. Yeah, it's rare for us to have to throw something out.
But I think that that's kind of funny because I'm thinking there's a metaphor there with you. Anyone can plant that. Anyone could get excited at the beginning of spring when you can plant those little seeds in the ground and start watering them, and then time goes on and your life gets a little busy, and that interest of you gardening this year is not looking so hot anymore. You forgot to water it, you forgot to weed it, and it's like, "Oh, and I didn't get to bear the fruits of my labor because I didn't put the labor
You
in."
you neglected, yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
Which I think the metaphor there is like, "Oh, I didn't, train the mind, train the body." And not to get too deep, but, like, I think that that is honestly, like, nature's, like, interesting metaphor with
It's
how
yeah,
you
it's
can
like it's analogous to everything else in life,
yeah,
right? Like it's not as simple as just you reap what you sow. Like sowing is just seeding,
yeah.
but there's maintenance, right? And to come back,
You
I
reap what
guess,
you maintain or yeah,
yeah, like that's even when to bring it back full circle to the child or the children analogy is it anybody can make a baby, right? But the outcome is the time that you invest over time, like over the course of a lifetime.
yeah.
That's when you get to help shape, hopefully in a positive way, and you're gonna screw up and forget to water once in a while, and you
Let the
should have maybe
weeds get a
should
little
have done a few
crazy.
more weeding. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you, but you end up with, the hopefully, the somewhat of a semblance of the outcome that you were shooting for with regards to what you were trying to grow, right? And yeah.
And the learning process of it all as well. The things you learn too. Like the
Mm.
things that you're notating and learning about yourself along the way. I think that's actually the coolest part for me, even starting companies or whatever, like training different sports or taking on new endeavors. It's like it's not the end result like of harvesting the fruit or whatever it may be isn't actually like, for instance, training for that triathlon. It
Mhm.
wasn't the event that was my most favorite highlight of the experience. It was like the Sunday early morning rides or the Saturday like long runs, whatever it was. And looking back, it's those moments that I'm cherishing more than the actual event itself because I was learning so much about like how my body worked, how to maintain like like proper nutrition and rest, and you're learning. You're just taking notes and you're learning and you're trying to get better, and then you make a mistake and you try to get better. Yeah, it's a cool metaphor actually, and I think it plays out in a lot of circumstances.
And what was your original inspiration for doing a triathlon? Like, why did you pick that?
I remember vividly running. It was probably because, like, once you start to get, when I was doing the marathon training, closer to your event, you're running longer, like, you're running longer distances. So I think before your taper week, which is the week before the
Whoa,
event,
whoa, 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 whoa! I want to back up to why did you choose a triathlon
I
as a
know,
goal?
and I'm getting to that.
Okay,
I I remember vividly on one of my long runs for the marathon, I went, "This is cool, like, this is interesting for my brain,"
okay,
because I kept on thinking, "This is a really interesting challenge for my brain." As it's all about endurance and just going, "Yeah, that's pain, I acknowledge that's pain, but pain's not gonna kill me, let's keep pushing." Like, that's what that was for me, the marathon, and I
okay.
remember a run and I was like, "I now want it to be like, I'm I'm pushing myself physically, like, to the point where I'm, like, using different muscles that I haven't really like used before. I was interested in swimming for a long time because I know that as I age, I want to always swim because I think that's a really low impact, very high quality activity that you can do as you age. Um, and so I before I even did the marathon, I was like, I want to do a triathlon. Like I was like, I just want to do a triathlon now because I
This is
wanted.
this is way too easy.
Well, it was more just like I want to use my legs for the bike. I want to use my shoulders for the swim, and like that aerodynamic concept of like how tight can you get when you're going down the hill to gain speed? Like it was like that kind of stuff. And then the run, I guess post marathon I was like, "Oh, the run's going to be easy breezy," but in my case it wasn't because it turned out to be a trail run. But yeah, that was the motivation. Is I was literally just like I'm I like the run. This is really cool for my brain, and obviously it's a physical challenge as well. But I really wanted to explore the trifecta.
Okay. And what on that line of thinking, when you started Last Shot Apparel initially, what did that look like? The very first, not the current state of
The
Last Shot.
boutique.
Yeah.
Oh God, I was 17. I wasn't even 18 yet, and I was just making sets. I was just making reworking sets from polo. It was Ralph Lauren polo shirt that I had, and I just cut it into two pieces, and then I used mom's sewing machine because she was really good at sewing, and she always made our clothes growing up. And so I asked her for some help, and she sat down with me over a couple weekends. And then I remember I wore it to a party, and two girls came up and said, "Can I buy one?" Or, "Where did you get that from?" And I said, "I made it." And they were like, "Oh, I want to buy one." And then it just spiraled from there.
So when you say spiral, what do you mean?
This isn't a podcast interviewing me, but it
No, but I
was,
know so little about you. I'm very curious.
for sure. Um, no, I didn't
Or
think
I forget a lot about you.
I didn't think too much of it. I really didn't. I was just curious of maybe more so the sewing aspect of anything because I mean, sewing is something, I think it's a lost art form. I think it's a lost trade. I think that we don't do it anymore, and I don't. It irks me that we don't. I remember growing up, you were always like, "Sew your damn sock together." I'm like, "Fair enough. I'll sure."
Yeah,
And then as you know, you're in dance and you have to sew your ballet slippers. You have to sew the ribbon on there, so you know how to hand sew. Well, not everyone does, and so we knew how to hand sew. And then just the pure ability to make your own clothes, I was like, "What? Yes, please." And I
right.
remember opening mom's sewing machine and seeing her like made with love tags. And I was like, "Oh my God," because mom, I know mom to be such a powerful businesswoman, and she obviously always like had that sort of profile or that personality in her, but I very rarely saw like that crafty creative no, I did when she would put together presents and gifts and baskets and stuff. Like I knew she loved that, like that putting assembly of crafty things like that, but I never really saw her make clothes. She would alter our dance costumes, but she never made clothes. And so when I saw those tags, I was like, "Oh my God, that's a whole other side of mom that I feel like I wish I was a fly on a wall for, because I
Right.
could just see her. I could just see her sewing away and making our tiny little baby clothes." So then I think that planted its seed. I didn't really know how strong that was in me. And then as I started to go overseas, there was the wardrobe, like for dance, there was the wardrobe department. And it was like, I mean, you're at sea for sometimes 5 days
Right.
straight. And you're like, "Hey, what are you up to?" "You're making costumes." "Sweet, let me give that a go." So it was like spent time with the wardrobe team, and on set, we would have to get our own costumes altered or whatever it was. So I would always find myself migrating to like these seamstresses and these designers that they're freaking masterminds. Like they are. It is. I truly don't think people understand the mathematics that go into sewing as well, because you can't mess up on the dimensions, the centimeters, the millimeters. You can't mess it up, because you mess it up, the garment, especially if it's no give, if the material doesn't have any stretch to it,
Right.
it doesn't work. It won't work. Like, and if you're making costumes for stunt double or for stunt work or anything like that where it requires actual safety requirements, then it's even more of a pressure. And so I think that we can so easily brush off the art of sewing or designing clothes, and it's this artsy
Yeah, and I would
fartsy
think,
like
and
fashion
maybe
thing.
I'm wrong, but in that environment, like if you think about being on a cruise ship, your access to you don't have access to everything at any time.
No.
You have what's available to you. So your your ability to be creative in how you solve problems using the materials and the resources you have available to you, and that's all you have. Your creativity and whatever's on the shelf.
Well, that's what it used to be, even for families that had nothing to their name and had to make their own clothes
Yeah,
and the
exactly.
homestead. Like it was
Yeah,
like it's just how it used to be done, and I think we've drifted away from it with the access to materials and I mean fast fashion, if you will, but like it just spiraled into something that it just came at us from all sides, and I don't think we really stopped to reflect the lost art form of sewing. And I think it's just whether you want to sew your own clothes or not, just learn how to sew, because I think it's really something that should never be lost.
yeah,
um
and I think we're really coming full circle on several subjects, because I think about, because we made a conscious choice to live rurally, so that for all kinds of reasons, but one of which was we weren't down the street from a fast food restaurant, and our children weren't. And so, um, we raised our family, like your mother, home cooked all the time. It was
yeah.
very rare for us to, get takeout or order in, or because it was a hassle, and it just wasn't worth it. And that blends into, well, then we can grow our own vegetables, and
Yeah.
like, and you're starting to uh, accumulate some skills and appreciate some values that have been around for millennia, and that is grow it, and you make a meal with the food you have available, and it's nutritious and
Yeah.
delicious all at the same time. But it
Yeah.
it was homegrown, literally garden to table.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and all
I
those skills are essential. I think it's
I
coming
maybe
back.
a devil's advocate, but I guess, like, I do worry, is it not essential anymore? Like, I do worry. I not worry, that's not the right word, but I am curious about, like, there I think the value is the work ethic and what it teaches you as a human to, like, put time and effort into something and dedicate yourself to something, and you'll reap the benefits if you do a good job. And maybe you won't reap the benefits, and it's like, let me try again, and that in it and of itself is a lesson. But I do wonder, it's like, in the world that we live in right now, again, devil's advocate, what is the purpose of it, of these time, like,
It
age
would be,
old
to
or
me, uh, it's discipline and delayed gratification. Like when you're if you're going to make an outfit, you're not making it for tonight's event. You had to start thinking and planning a week or so ago. Like if
yeah.
if you want an outfit for an event, or if you want to have fresh homegrown vegetables in the fall, you got to start in the spring, and you got to put the work in, and then you have them for as long as they last through the winter, and that's when it pays off. You got to put the work in. And you're not going to get any benefits other than your emotional and your spiritual fulfillment from working and feeling good about it, and the exercise and benefits of being outside in the nature. But the food in your belly isn't coming for over 3 months, 4 months. And and having the discipline to still do that every day, to weed that garden, water that garden every day, gets you to the harvest in the fall. When you go, now we have a cornucopia, we have an abundance of food. How do we store it and use it and pickle it and make tomato sauce and make salsa and all of those types of things, and enjoy that throughout the winter? It's because you put the time in and you had the discipline to do that.
And and I think humans, we don't uh we say in the environment that we're in the world that we live in, but human beings in essence have not changed in the biological sense for many, many years. And so I think we can say in today's world we don't need these skills, but it's like, whether you need them or not, we are an, a species that craves challenge, overcoming a challenge, and I think that whatever form that takes on, we will always need that. And I think that also, I always say this too, but, like, you are the one that lays your head on your pillow at night. Like, you have to be the one that, when you shut your eyelids, you are content with the things, the choices you've made, the people that you have in your life, and all that stuff. And I think, arguably for me at least, if I shut my eyes and went, like, I have no skills, I haven't taught, like, I haven't dedicated myself to anything enough so that I can see the other end of it, all of this X, Y, and Z, then I feel like that in itself is a reason why you should take on something that you see from seed to sow.
Yeah, and it gives you more than just that end outcome, like you talked about with the marathon or the triathlon. You get more out of the journey and the process. Like you're
Yeah.
that individual that started to climb that mountain or train for that event, you're a different person at the other end. You're
And
you're
interesting to
different.
talk to. That is one thing that I will say. It's like, I just try to become more interesting to talk to. Or, like, or you know what I mean? Like, it's like, how can I bring to the table something interesting? Like, cuz it's is there it you meet people that you're like, there's I'm hitting a wall here because I'm not finding anything that I'm finding interesting beyond the surface of what we're just talking about for the last 30 minutes.
Right.
It's like, I'm just trying to, like, honestly, wholehearted truth. I really do spend a lot of the time, like, learning new random things that will have no value to me outside of just this could be something that I could talk to somebody about or, like, you know?
I could fill in some really empty voids in a cocktail situation with
Cool
some
tip
in
added.
stu I did something and it was, I think, interesting, maybe it was weird. It I'm
Okay, so I wanna transition a little bit because I honestly I had this huge list of things. I always anytime I have somebody on that I'm like, they have so much that I wanna talk to them about, what happens to me is I kinda shut down because I go like, I don't know where to start, and so I'm just not I don't I get overwhelmed, and I'm trying to get better at that, but, it's what happens to me whenever there's somebody that has this, like, library of topics that I wanna nerd out about, but then all of a sudden, I just go, "I don't even know where to start," and in fact, now I quit. Like, it's like, sometimes when I have you on, I
yeah,
genuinely, like, couple days before, start to go like, I wanna do it all, I wanna ask him everything, and then it just becomes so useless. But I did actually when I sent you the text being like, "Hey, are you game for another recording?" I was like immediately just like, let the questions I'll be on a walk or I'll be at the gym or I'll be whatever working on some prints or emailing and just a thing will come up in my head and I started to create like dad number 3 on my notes. I was like,
yeah.
question, topic, like, and then now I'm like I've accumulated enough, and so even if we don't hit them all today, they turned out to be like a really good bunch of questions that I'm like, okay, this is actually exactly what I've been wanting to dive into. So I'll get into a few, um because I know that this list will require more, but I'm curious.
I know one that's you're dying to know is I keep my nails really short, like super short. I don't grow long nails, not even the pinky. I've seen that on some guys and not a fan. So you can check that off your list.
No, I feel queasy now because that was just not something that I expected, but that's on par. The one thing that I am always have been curious to do is you don't expressively do this, but I'm curious in your head if you do. Do you hold grudges? Would you say you're a person that holds grudges?
No,
And has that always been something? Because I'm envious of it.
no, it was something. It was something I had to address, and it was many years ago. Um, I I I have had enough events where I have been either tortured, not an exaggeration, or uh, taken advantage of multiple times, and uh, and I had to carry that with me, um, it ate away at me. I was angry for a long time when I was younger, and the quote I always use when I talk to people is hate is a poison that kills the vessel that contains it. So no,
Oh, that's good.
I had to learn that. I had to learn how to go. I have to let that go. Some people call it forgiveness. Uh, I don't necessarily subscribe to that, but I can go. I'm not going to carry that anymore, and
Right.
I know the source of that, and I can identify it visually, audibly, emotionally, and I can go. I'm going to eliminate that from my life, and I'm closing the door on that. You know, I'm putting that in a box or in a bottle, and I'm chucking it into the ocean and going that out into the universe.
Mm-hmm.
It's not mine anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't need to understand where it came from or why they or that happened. I can just go, A, that's never happening again.
Right.
And B, I don't need to carry that weight with me. Yeah, yeah. So I don't. I had to learn it. It wasn't easy. Yeah. So, but I'm pretty good at it now, and I can I can identify the sources of some of those things pretty quickly because you've there's patterns to people.
Exactly.
right?
Yes.
So you can see it coming sometimes, you know, you can see it from, it's like a shitty driver, you know, weaving down the road. Like you see it coming your way, you go, I need to stay the hell out of that lane,
Totally.
right?
And I think if you know somebody and I think you can do it almost in a way where don't set yourself up for failure if you know that somebody say it might even be that they've got something on their plate right now that they're like maybe it's a legal issue, maybe it's some sort of relationship issue, maybe it's something that they've held on to themselves and it's nightmares or skeletons in their closet from youth, whatever it may be. It's never really about you, it's 110% something about them. So I think you only do yourself a disfavor if you think elsewise, and also if you keep that with you. And that's something that people practice or try. I think it's a lifelong practice to try and acknowledge source of anger or source of the issue, and then to go, not me. That wasn't me.
Yeah.
Um,
Especially
yeah,
if that's like that's you phrased that more eloquently than I could have. And I think it's especially important, like it, to discern between, you know, is that a peripheral relationship, or is that somebody I love and care about that is, you know, attacking or on the offensive or trying to hurt me in some way? Because then you just, like you said, hear, listen, acknowledge. You don't own it, but you're, this is a lifelong relationship. And so, and still recognizing they're just using me in a good way to let stuff out, but it doesn't have to stick to me. Like the words that are said are mouth noises, right? Unless you attach an emotional value to those words, you're just letting somebody get it out, and it's important to them and they want to say it to you. And but you, the next day you go, everything's all good.
yeah,
You don't, like, no harm no foul. Like I didn't, the the venom you spewed, it, I didn't get any in me. Like it got on me, and I know how you're feeling
yeah,
about certain
repelled.
things,
Yeah.
but it's like you're, it's a ballet in those types of relationships.
I think my issue, and I'm reflecting on situations where I have, because I would say that in the last 2 years I've really practiced this, and honest to God, it's been the most relieving thing in my entire life to just go like, they didn't actually mean what they said, or at least it was, I know them too well that they didn't actually mean to hurt me in the way that I've taken that.
Mhm.
So you know what? I'm gonna let that just like what and it takes time to do that, and but it's a constant practice and a constant dance, kind of like you said. However, I'm wondering, when you meet face to face with somebody that is really close to you or in your family or in your friends that isn't as good at that and does hold grudges, and you
Mhm.
want to get over that hump or whatever it is, or move on, and it might have been like a sort of conversation that you had that didn't go the way you wanted it to or what have you. Do you have any, like, have you ever been in that situation where you're like,
Oh, many times where, you know, I've had friends or family members where, you know, shit went dark, you know,
yeah,
like really dark. And then you have the cool down period where you're kind of both going, well, that was bad.
yeah,
And that didn't go anywhere near, I thought, you know, it escalated fast and far. And but it's still someone that I know I want to have a relationship with. So then I'll like, instead of going, well, I'm waiting for them to apologize. No, that, like I tried that path. It with most people it doesn't work because they don't. There's certain types of personalities that just, they can just shut off immediately and just put up a wall, and it's a permanent wall. It's the Great Wall of China. Been
yeah.
there, um, and not bragging, a little bit. Um, Whereas if it's a person that we have each invested in our relationship over a long period of time, I'm not willing to give up on that over a single event, like over an argument, spewing vitriol at each other. Um, I'm going to go. I'm going to try and extend an olive branch, and I will do that over time. And I would say it would be in relation to the amount of time it took us to build that relationship.
Right.
So it's proportionate.
Right.
So I'll try for a period of time, and if it doesn't happen, again, like it's just then that is an anchor that I don't need on my boat,
Yeah.
and I go, I guess I got to cut this line. Like they're just that you can only try, and that can only you have a to me I have a finite amount of, I don't know, like a capacity. Some people think in, how much does their bucket carry, or how much does
Yes.
the hard drive have, or whatever your visualization is. And so eventually you just have to go, I can't allow this to
To take up
continue to,
some of that space.
yeah, because I do have other positive,
Yeah.
healthy relationships that this is taking away from.
Yeah.
And it's an investment that I made over time, that both of us individuals made over time. And so it's worth trying to recoup that investment and that relationship to a certain point. And then you go, not anymore.
Yeah.
And then you have to just, you know, make your peace with it and say, I enjoyed the time, enjoyed that relationship. It's part of something I'll treasure for the rest of my life,
Right.
but I have to let that sink,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Um, I was thinking about this a couple days ago. There has been relationships in my life where I definitely try harder in making sure it stays alive than other people,
Mhm.
than the other party. It's not that I think it's just more so I am somebody that likes to reach out or make a plan or whatever it is. And I do stop myself and go, if I didn't say anything or if I didn't do anything, would they ever? You know?
Right. Yeah.
And then I stop and go like, well, you that's a curious thought, let's but we don't need to do that because it's not that it's taking anything from me. So I think that there's no harm, no foul there, but I am curious to know if you have any thoughts on that. Like if there is, because I know many people will be able to relate to that. Like there's relationships in your life where maybe it's like a 60-40. You know what I mean? Like you do 60%, they hang on to the 40%. And
Yep.
I think I would argue that that's fine.
Yeah. Like if yeah, and I think measuring it takes away some of the
Yeah.
value of it,
Yeah, you're right.
because if that relationship is important to you, then you're not measuring who's doing what when and how much. And like if it gets to that point, I think you've already told yourself something. If you're
No,
if
it's
you're
more so like overanalyzing relationships and friendships, and because I'm always thinking, man, I am blessed with the people in my life. I genuinely, my family, my friends, I'm like, man, I am blessed. I know that not everyone has this. And then naturally through that train of thought, I just start observing. Like I just start observing relationships and the people in my life, and I think the strength in the relationship that I have with these people in my life, because there is I think, like you said, you match your effort with sort of the history of the relationship up to that point.
yep,
And I think that that is something that I do too, is just like the people that are close to me, I go like, who is my like like woven like anchors, and who are the ones that are still great friends, but not the like they're rooted into the ground.
yep.
And that's where I just become observant of like, if I stopped texting whole like or making the plans, or what would that look like? And then I go like, but I it's not taking away from me anything that's negative. It's just purely an observation.
And that is a great observation. And especially, I think all of our children are sort of moving into that stage of life where people are getting they have significant relationships, they're moving into different stages of their life, they're at on a personal level, whether it's they're having children, or they're getting married, or they're running businesses and they're starting their careers. Everybody is getting busier,
Yeah.
and it's important to have people like you that is sort of a connector amongst those relationships, to every once in a while pop up and go, hey, I want to make sure we stay in touch.
Yeah.
I want to make sure you guys know, or that I still love you, and
Yeah.
I want to spend time with you. Even if you can't, I want you to know that you are important, and I understand you're busy, and to keep trying to do that.
Yeah.
And those, as you described, those sort of core relationships over time, there's some that will remain strong for the entire duration, and there's some that will come and go, and that's okay, right? Like there's very few. I have any friends that there wasn't gap years, and
Right.
some it was more than a year, 2 years, where we just didn't hang.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't, at that time, we didn't even have the internet or text messaging or anything.
Right.
But you find a way to come back together. You know what I mean? Like
That bond is there. Yeah.
yeah, and so it's important. I think every group of, it could be a dozen to maybe half a dozen. There's usually an individual in there that goes, "Hey, everybody," or "Hey, you or Bobby or Sue or
Yeah.
Mel, or like, can we do something? No,
Yeah.
okay, great. Well, maybe in the future, yeah, sure." Especially with the ability to communicate remotely now, just and you never know what's going on with other people.
Exactly that,
You know what I
right?
mean? Like, they might be going through their own struggles,
Yeah.
and so just having one of those individuals in any group, right, it's important. And
Yeah.
don't take rejection negatively. Just
Right. Because more times it's probably just they are going through something and
Yep.
it's nothing to do with you. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it might be something's going great for them, and they're on a frickin' run, and life is going good, and they're busy, and they've got a group around them. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Go for it.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Let's connect later.
Um, this is something that can take a world of its own. So this might be one of the last questions I ask, but do you ever think or wonder why some people like digging deep or curious about digging into deeper topics than others? Because there's many people in my life that I love them for it, but you ask one just kind of philosophical or personal or a layered question, if you will, and it's like, "That was weird. What? That I don't know." And so you know what I mean? And it's like, never mind then." And they don't like talking about it, and maybe they'll answer, but it's like a 20-second answer, and you can get the sense that it's not what they wanna talk about. But then you have people that are like there is, and I'll shout her out. But Lindsay, one of my good girlfriends, her and I, like, we could talk about something, one thing, for hours, and it's just and it's deep and it's layersome and it has like so many elements and perspectives, and then I notice it like quiets the room down and people vacate like it's poison in the room. Like, and so I'm just so curious that why is that? Because I am that person. I like to actually like get inside your head and figure. I wouldn't have a podcast if I didn't, for God's sake. Like, so I'm curious to know, because I know you're similar in that way, or that's where I get it from. Why you think that's the case, or what your thoughts are on it, maybe. I don't know. Your experience with it. Unfortunately, it is at this point in the recording where Dad's audio was unable to be audible. So we have to finish the episode here. But again, episode 4 is to come if you let me know that you want one. Dad can finish answering that question because I'm still wondering. That's a wrap on another episode of Briggs & Co., where we leave average for Joe. If you liked the episode, please hit the subscribe button, comment, share the show with a friend. It really helps spread the message, grow the show. It helps me bring on more guests because I get to be opened up to more figures in this world that have something to say or something that they've done that I want to highlight, all of that good stuff. So please don't be afraid to connect with me, connect with others, and spread the word about this show. It really does help. You can connect with me online at Briggs_and_co_. You can also connect with me on TikTok. It's Briggs & Co. I've got an email address for those that know what that is. It's admin@briggsandco.ca. I really have so much fun with this podcast, and it's just such a gift and honor to sit down and chat with brilliant human beings who I pull so much inspiration from. Let this episode be a reminder to get out into the universe, to connect with human beings, to challenge your frickin' selves, push the boundaries of what you think you're capable of. And in turn, you will inspire people that look up to you. Trust me, you might not realize it, but there are eyes looking at you, watching you, pulling from you. And let that be a good message to share with the world. Thank you all so much. Take care. Squeeze your loved ones extra tight. Ciao for now.